Hello everybody and welcome to the Reading Corner with Mr. Wills. Thank you for your patience while we had that little break at Easter, but now, as promised, after 12 likes on the last video, we're going to be recording daily this week, and today I will be bringing you part 2 of chapter 8 of The Boy at the Back of Class by Onjali Q. Rauf. The last episode brought you the first part of chapter 8. If you've not watched that yet, go back and watch it, and if you enjoyed it, drop us a like, please. But it started off as a big adventure, and we left it when the narrator and his mum were about to set off on a quest to find a pomegranate. So that's where we're going to pick up from today. First, we went to the fruit stall that was at the bottom of the high street. It's run by a man and a woman called Mr. and Mrs. Marbles. They like to shout, only a pan, get your fruit and veg, only a pan. Their faces are always red and smiling, and they wear giant square-shaped green belts around their waist, which always look empty but jingle loudly as they walk. Mrs. Marbles helps people pick out the fruit they want, and Mr. Marbles puts them in a bag. We always buy our fruit and vegetables from them, and I've never known them not to have anything we need. But when we asked them for if they had a pomegranate, they both shook their heads and told us to try the supermarket. So we walked up and over the hill to the supermarket. They had a fruit section that was as long as our house, but Mum couldn't see a pomegranate anywhere. We went over to a man who was stacking carrots and humming to himself and asked him if he had any pomegranates in store. He walked us over to a small box that was empty. Sorry, love, looks like we've run out. You might want to try that bigger supermarket on the other side of town. Ah, okay, thank you. Mum looked down at me and said, come on, the adventure continues. We hopped onto a bus, and after half an hour, we landed at an even bigger supermarket. This one had a car park as big as a football field and corridors as long as the ones in our school. But we still couldn't find a pomegranate anywhere. Let's ask someone, said Mum. They must have them. We walked around and found a man dressed in a suit who was standing by the sandwich section. He had a label on his jacket that said, Frank Smith, floor manager. I didn't know what a floor manager was, but I guessed he had to make sure the floor was clean and help everyone that fell down make sure they got back up again. But Mr. Smith doesn't look like the kind of person who would help anyone get up from the floor. He had lips that went downwards, and as if they'd never smiled, and his hair looked wet, as if a large bottle of oil had fallen on top of it. He was staring at a clipboard and muttering angrily to himself. Excuse me, Frank, is it? Hi, said Mum, smiling, but the man gave Mum a cold nod before continuing to fill in his form. We're looking for some pomegranates, but can't seem to find any, said Mum, smiling again. We don't sell them here, said Frank, still looking at his clipboard. Oh, really? Any idea where we could find some? No. My mum looked at him for a few seconds and then said in her warmest voice, Thank you. You've been extremely helpful today and you've outdone yourself. Have a wonderful day now, grabbing my hand and walking away. Mum, why were you so nice to him? I said. He was horrible. He didn't even try to help us, not even a little bit. Because you should never be horrible to someone who's horrible to you, said Mum. Otherwise, they win by making you just as bad as them. Now, come on, let's get back on that bus. There's another place I know that we can try. By this time, I was getting hungry. So while we were waiting for the bus, I ate my banana. Said my mum, looking at her watch. It was nearly 2 o'clock and there were some dark clouds gathering in the sky. I'm afraid this next stop will have to be our last one, darling. It looks like it's going to start raining in a bit. A few seconds later, a very full bus pulled up in front of us and we squeezed on. I clung to Mum's coats because there weren't any empty seats, and we waited for our stop. I was worried because this was our last try, and I had just won. I was worried because this was our last try, and because I only had one chance left to find a pomegranate, I crossed my fingers and toes and made a wish that we would. The next place felt like an awfully long way, and when we finally got there, it was filled with so many people that we could hardly walk properly. There were lots and lots of market stalls lying in the middle of a big road, all selling fish and meat and bed sheets and long gold chains. There was a man with a microphone who was selling perfumes like it was a game show. "Roll up, roll up!" And next to him was a woman shouting, "Peter never picked potatoes as good as these before. Buy 'em before they go." I wonder who Peter was and how much money he made picking potatoes. But then I could smell onions and burgers being cooked somewhere, which made my tummy rumble. I love burgers, especially ones that have fried onions and ketchup in them. But I wanted to save my money for the pomegranates, so I scrunched up my nose and tried not to smell anything at all. We visited every stall in the market, from the beginning of the street right to the end. But even though we looked as carefully as we couldn't find a single pomegranate anywhere. My mum had told me to look for a pinkish ball that looked like a very hard apple that had a small crown on top, but I couldn't see anything that looked even a little bit royal. "Try up at that station, love," suggested one of the stall owners when my mum asked for help. "They have everything up there, everything under the sun. They should have some." "Thank you," said Mum. She grabbed my hand and gave it a squeeze because she could tell that I was starting to give up hope. "Nearly there," she whispered. "I can feel it." We walked for 5 minutes down the road and up to the station and found the shop with the woman the market stall had told us about. It was much smaller than the big supermarket with Frank, the horrible floor manager, in, but it was bright with lots of coloured lights and bowls of fruit and vegetables outside. It had everything that you could think of. Peaches and plums, mangoes and bananas, kiwis and pears, yellow apples, red apples, pink apples, and even a spiky pink and green fruit that I'd never seen before. But we couldn't see any pomegranates anywhere, so we went inside and asked the man behind the counter. "Ah," nodded the man, scratching the tip of his nose. "Pomegranate, I'll see for you." And talking out loud to himself, he turned and hurried into the corner of the shop and quickly looked through some boxes. "Much, much regret," he called out, holding up an empty box. "No more. But we have a delivery on Tuesday." The man came back and looked at us, and we looked at him. He had a large white beard and a moustache that curled up at the ends and was wearing a bright red turban. I liked him because his eyebrows were like hairy caterpillars that had jumped up and down a lot when he spoke. "Oh well," Mum said. "We tried at least." The man looked at me. I think he must have noticed that I was looking sad because he said, "Is it for the little one?" I looked up and nodded. "And for my friend," I said. "He's new in my class and misses home, and that's what he used to have there." I see," he said, looking at me with a smile. Then he frowned as if he'd thought of something, and suddenly pointed his finger to the ceiling and cried out, "Aha!" He ran to a small door at the back of the shop and disappeared. Mum and I looked at each other in surprise. "He's funny," I said. "I like him." "He seems lovely," agreed my mum. After a few seconds, the man came back, but instead of returning to the counter, he came and stood in front of me. "They are not perfect, but they will be okay," he said, and whipping out his hands from behind his back, he held up 2 little pink balls that each had a little crown on top. "Oh!" cried my mum, clapping her hands. "You have some!" "They are a little old. My wife says that they are not 100%, so we do not sell them anymore," said the man, his eyebrows jumping up and down even more. "My wife, she knows everything about fruit." So I listened to her the most. "They're perfect enough for us," laughed my mum. "Aren't they, darling?" I nodded as eagerly as I could, so as the man gently handed the pomegranates to me. "You and your friend enjoy, please," he whispered, and tapped me on the nose with a finger that had a golden ring on it and a large red stone. I looked down at the pomegranates. They were the size of grapefruits and had a hard peachy pink skin that was smooth and shiny as polished glass. And both of them had a tiny flower on the top, made up of exactly 7 stiff brown petals. They were the best, most interesting things that I had ever seen. Mum took out her purse because that's where I'd put my pocket money, but the man shook his head and waved his hand. "No, no, you must not. This is a gift for the little one." "Oh, no, you must let me—" But the man held up his hand, which made Mum go quiet, and then put a hand on his chest. "It is a gift. They are not excellent. Not new, so it's a very poor gift." "They're the best gifts," said Mum. "Aren't they, darling?" I nodded, feeling so happy that I wanted to hug this man, and Mum... I nodded, feeling so happy that I wanted to just hug this man and my mum and jump up and down all at once. "Thank you, sir," I said, giving the man an enormous smile. "Welcome, welcome," he said, smiling back, and gave me a pat on the top of my head and waved at us as we left the shop. "What a wonderful man," said Mum, as she handed me the pomegranates and put them in my rucksack. "He looked like a king," I said, thinking of the ring with the stone in it and his red turban. Mum laughed. "He certainly has the heart of one. Maybe he is one. You can never tell with people now." Now, seeing as our unexpected adventure is at an end, let's hurry up home before it starts to pour. I looked up. Everything had suddenly turned dark, and the sky was filling with large grey clouds that were so low you could hear them rumbling. But I didn't care, because I had 2 of the best presents that you could ever have in my bag, given to me by a man with the heart of a king. I hope you enjoyed the rest of Chapter 8, and thank you for joining me in the Reading Corner. Tomorrow we will have Chapter 9. Thank you. Goodbye.